Imitation meat has been really in the news recently. Beyond Meat IPO'd last week, had the largest first day pop for an IPO this year, up 163%. So, imitation meat has been really hot in the streets today. But today we're going to talk about the real thing, Dan. We're coming in for the real thing. And it's a really interesting story. So, over the past year, really beginning in October, really started to ramp up. There has been a pandemic across the entire hog population in China that's really showing ripple effects all across the world. So just to give you some background on what's going on, African swine fever has really ravaged the Chinese hog population. Over half the world's pigs are in China, and China consumes over half the world's pork. And it first started presenting an issue in early August when the Chinese government had said they'd effectively controlled the outbreak at a small farm that had 400 hogs in Xinjiang in China. However, starting in October, it really started to ramp up, and now this disease has spread across China into Mongolia, Vietnam, and Cambodia. Over 1 million hogs have been culled from populations, and we're expecting 100 times more than that before this is all over. Dan, I mean, this is a crazy story, right? I mean,
well, you're the first person to ever put the death of 1 million pigs and fun in the same context. But yeah, this has ramifications in that it's not just about China not having pork. If people don't have pork to eat, they're going to eat something else. Right. So there's really just going to be a huge effect, and it becomes like, yes, the price of pork will get more expensive. The reality is that could change demand and cause other problems, but this could wipe out half of the pork population of the world, and that's not so easy to rebuild. These aren't chickens, which have a relatively quick life cycle. I'm not sure how long it takes a pig to go from birth to maturity. I'm going to guess you have a better chance of knowing that, having grown up where you did. But it's got to be at least a year, right?
Yeah, it's a quick, much longer cycle than it might be for other meats. And just to give you context, so the Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Department of Agriculture is estimating that up to 134 million head of hog in China may have to be culled before this is all over. That's the equivalent to the entire U.S. population of hogs in the entire country. And the U.S. is one of the largest meat producers in the world. And implications are that the global meat supply, not just counting pork, the global meat supply could fall as much as 5%. You mentioned ripple effects to other parts of the meat industry, but also China's economy. So when you look at pork is really a significant part of China's consumer price basket. It's kind of like the CPI here in the U.S. It's a $128 billion industry in that country. And because it's such a big part of the economy, any increase in pork prices actually can cause inflation to the yuan, China's currency. Just for context, I mean, if pork prices were to double, it's probably not likely unless this really ramps up. But their inflation, according to what Citigroup's estimates, would ramp up to 5.4%. And then above a 3% ceiling, the Chinese central bank has real limitations on their ability to take action to kind of spur the economy there. And as well, you have to layer over to the trade war negotiations that are going on this week. China has enforced tariffs across a wide range of U.S. agricultural products, including meats. And then, of course, if Chinese domestic supply is hurt, and this is one of the largest parts of the country's diet, it's really going to limit Xi Jinping's ability to negotiate hard at the table, at least when it comes to this part of the industry. So it's really just touching all kinds of things you would never expect.
And let me put this into context for the average person, because I know, Nick, you're sitting there, Austin's sitting there, and you're thinking, how is this going to affect me going to buy bacon or a pork roast? And the reality is the U.S. and China are competing for pork. The U.S. does not produce enough pork to meet its needs. So right now, there are suppliers that used to sell to the U.S. that are selling to China because prices have gone higher. So this has become a commodity that really there's a bit of a price war over.
Right. I mean, and again, you mentioned that other meats are substitutes. So beef and chicken are both substitutes for pork. So it's not only going to affect the pork market. We've seen wholesale pork prices surge 21% in China. The price for ham in the U.S. is up at the highest it's been since 2015. In the EU, prices have surged 16%. But if you look at these other markets, The USDA expects China's imports of chicken to rise nearly 70% this year, which is absolutely massive, and it trickles down to all the parts of the market. Dan, you had some interesting stats when we look at some restaurant companies in the U.S. and how they're already starting to price some of these into their commodity costs going into 2019.
Yeah, I mean, McDonald's says it could increase their cost by about 3%, and it's not pork. It's that the demand for beef and chicken is going to be higher. McDonald's really only uses pork and bacon, maybe their sausage in the morning. It's not a huge part of their menu. It's just sort of how this all trickles down. But there's also some ways to manage this. I think we've talked about in the past, Buffalo Wild Wings last year did a promotion where they charged less for boneless wings. Because at the time, they were able to buy boneless wings at a cheaper price than they were able to buy bone-in wings. That may have changed. The price of bone-in wings has actually collapsed a little bit. But basically, McDonald's might give consumers incentive to eat something else. There might be part of the logic you mentioned Beyond Meat before, why more companies are introducing alternative products. Because if you can take away 5% of demand but still do the sales, then you can really curtail some of the damage this is going to do.